She was the Nickelodeon star who played opposite Jamie Lynn Spears and Victoria Justice on Zoe 101 and Victorious in the mid-2000s. But over the past few years, Daniella Monet has made a name for herself as the co-founder of non-toxic and vegan cosmetics brand Kinder Beauty. We're chatting with Daniella about her journey into a holistic and healthy lifestyle and her advice for others on how they can do the same. This is Advocate Now. Well, Daniella, many people know you as an actress, but over the past few years, you've really shifted your brand a lot. You created Kinder Beauty Box, which is a cruelty-free and non-toxic subscription box. And overall, you've really just used your platform to highlight holistic and conscious living. But when did that journey start for you on a personal level?
On a personal level, I'd have to say it was about that infamous teenage time in life. I was about 15 years old. I'd actually had my first role on a network show called Listen Up. It was on CBS. And while I was enduring a lot more pressure, a lot more change, a lot more rigorous schedules and things of that nature, I was actually dealing with some personal stuff too. My parents were both diagnosed with cancer and going through a divorce. So I was having health complications and I was diagnosed with IBS and put on some pretty intense medication that took my very healthy around 100-pound 15-year-old self to about 70 pounds. And with that came, a hit to my mental health, emotional health. And it was around that time that I realized how important it was to really take your own well-being into your own hands. And what that looked like for me was taking a step back. And though I was on all these medications and having really, really terrible side effects, the weight loss for one, I was realizing that if I just paid more attention to what was actually going on emotionally and had better coping habits, that I could actually endure a lot more of this. And with that came a lot more awareness around how I ate, what I used in my home, what I used on my body, just a lot more self-care and self-awareness. And that's where this whole conscious living, I think, really stemmed from.
And then in 2019, you co-founded Kinder Beauty. At that point, you had already had a lot of success with acting, which you had been doing since you were a child. So what exactly made you want to pivot? Was it the health issues that made you step into a career in the clean and ethical beauty market?
I think it was partially that, yes. I did see a lane where, there was a need for a much more clear identity of what clean and vegan and cruelty-free beauty looked like and making that accessible. And that's always been really close to my heart. I think because I have been so lucky enough to make these choices in my lifestyle that were more clean and more healthy and more ethical. How do we bring that to the masses at a price point and just an accessibility point that's approachable and relatable? And that's where Kinder Beauty really filled that void. And my partners and I agreed. One of my partners, Ivana Lynch, was one of the actresses in Harry Potter. And I think where we really came together was in acting, you're kind of just, you're wearing all kinds of products all the time. And I wanted to be more conscious about what was coming, was going on my body, going on my face. And I realized that I too, even though I cared so much, was confused as to what really was out there in the world.
And you talk about, it being cruelty-free, non-toxic, vegan. Cruelty-free especially has really become sort of a buzzword. And I think a lot of people are unsure of exactly what it means, even as you were trying to navigate that. Can you explain what cruelty-free is and why you wanted that to be a core part of your mission?
Yeah, so cruelty-free means that there was nothing done to an animal in terms of testing in order to make it to the marketplace. So now what we know is that there's been so much testing done already. There's a long list of ingredients that have already passed that are clear and safe for human use or consumption or whatever, so on and so forth. So we can use a cruelty-free standard to protect these animals from being exposed to further harm. There are obviously still a lot of practices in place and a lot of companies that still rely on animal testing, but there's been so many advances. And of course, that list that they can refer to that's already passed, where we can have all these products become more available that don't involve any cruelty done to animals. And that's what we really stand for.
You went from being a vegetarian to being vegan. What made you decide to go that route?
So when I was about 5, I was on a family trip to a dude ranch where I saw livestock for the first time, and I saw a rodeo. And that rodeo was pretty impactful for me because I had never seen animals suffer in front of my eyes. And at that age, you're really impressionable, vulnerable, sensitive. So I asked all the questions. And now that I have a 3.5-year-old, I used to wonder, how did I know at 5 years old that I didn't want to eat animals? Well, my 3.5-year-old has proven me right because he is so inquisitive and things just land. And when that seed is planted, it's all you need. And so I stopped eating animals at that point when I realized that animals were subjected to torture and slaughter in order to become food for our consumption. And I then later on, a few different things happened. One of my uncles was diagnosed with cancer, and they put him on a vegan diet on his last, I don't even remember how long it was, dying days. And it was framed to me in this way where cancer can't survive in an alkaline body. And so we need to make sure that he's eating tons of plants. And I learned a lot about just like the health aspect of veganism. And at the same time, I actually had learned a lot about the animal ag industry through a book called Skinny Bitch. And I learned just about the business behind animal ag. And yeah, between like health and that, and then my heart and just wanting to save animals, I was like, nah, this isn't for me. And that's when I went vegan about 11 years old.
I read that book and also decided to go vegetarian and then vegan, went a very similar route after that. And I think it's very common that a lot of people, begin their clean living journeys with their diets. And then a little bit later, maybe their eyes are open to all the chemicals that are in the products that they're using. Do you remember when you first started to pay attention to the ingredients in a lot of mainstream products?
Yes, it was probably about the time when I was on, gosh, what show was it? Probably Victorious, where I was asking those questions about what am I putting on my skin? Because I'm in this makeup for so many hours. And it was the first time that I'd ever worn like real stage makeup. I'd been on shows before, but I was younger and it wasn't really like they put a little blush on you or whatever. And then I just became more aware, and that awareness, I guess, trickled down to like just my everyday routine and how I could control what I put on my skin. And then definitely when I thought about the idea of having a family and getting pregnant, it became that much more important around, just making sure I was conscious of what I was putting on my body, because I was, aware of not only for myself, but being pregnant as well.
And thankfully, the clean beauty movement has really gained a lot of momentum. People are really starting to pay attention, but there's still so much work that needs to be done in terms of the beauty industry in the US. It's largely unregulated. How do you hope to see it change over the next 10 or so years?
I think that we need to have stricter clean standards. I think there's a lot of nuance there where people claim things are clean and their standards are different from, other people's standards. There's a lot of room for improvement. And I'm excited that people are talking about it and that people care, because people vote with their dollar. And as long as people, spend money on the products that are primarily clean, or they're asking for more of that in the market, then I think brands will follow suit.
And speaking of spending money, it can be expensive to switch everything out, start fresh with all clean products. So for someone who's just starting to learn about clean beauty and all of the toxicities in mainstream cosmetics, what is one thing that you would recommend that they should switch out first?
I used to moisturize my face with 2 things, aloe vera and vitamin E oil, and I would mix the 2 until they became like a lotion. Mm-hmm. And while everyone was using Pond's and whatever else was hot at the time, like that was my go-to. And still to this day, I care a lot about really, really simple ingredients. And I think we get so bought by all this branding and marketing and people pulling us in every which direction about this product being, the next big thing, when really we kind of could just regress to some of these more simpler ingredients that we could actually find in our own homes or, the grocery store, and create products that are going to serve our skin better than some of these ones with fillers and additives and preservatives and everything else.
It's so, so true. Daniella, thank you so much for the hacks, the information, everything that you're doing with Kinder Beauty, and for spending some time with us today.
Thanks, Sonia. I appreciate it.
I'm Sonia Baghdadi. Thanks for watching and advocating. For more stories and content like this, visit advocate.com and advocatechannel.com.